We are back on Morning Line. Our guest is Clifton Harris, Urban League of Middle Tennessee. We've just kind of reviewed the latest federal report from the National Urban League on the state of Black America. It's worth talking about, whether you're black, white, otherwise, living in a community, understanding what's happening to some of your neighbors and those who are around us. And I appreciate Clifton coming on this morning. We kind of painted the grim picture. It is kind of grim in terms of especially some of these things that where you would hope after, the civil rights movement all these years later, things have improved. But in areas of wealth, it's pretty much the same as it was going back to the 1960s. The disparities.
Yeah, because, people are having, inflation is a very real thing. And as a result of that, people having to use their savings, to pay for everyday expenses. The cost of living is going up, for everybody. And then when you're already, spending over 50% of your income on housing, that does not leave a lot of discretionary income, Nick, to be able to do some of the other things, like eat.
Right. All right. So we wanted to painted the picture, and people are going to be watching this. Some of it comes as a surprise. Some of it's not going to come to a surprise, especially those in the African American community who are living it. Okay, so what do you hope that these reports spur on, and where do we go on this?
Well, I hope that these reports, spur on, our fight, the work that we have to do.
We hear that every darn year
in public policy.
Yeah, and that's okay. And
right.
But what we see happening right now with redistricting,
right.
and the way they're changing it, and maybe to the point where I worry that many will decide, what's the point of voting sometimes when these redistricting things come along and they feel as though, their candidates won't even get a shot. Yeah,
well, I mean, if you don't vote, then you're going to get more of even more of what you got.
True.
So
right.
you have to vote in order to be able to have representation, right? Votes matter. They really do make a difference, and so we definitely encourage people to vote. But there's an all-out assault on our democracy right now in order for a certain block of people to gain control of or diminish our voting power, if you will. We're seeing tactics like intimidation, gerrymandering, as you stated, redistricting, and so as a result, we have less representation, and that is not good. And so when you are dealing with public policy, you want people in the room that look like me, deciding on policies that's going to impact me, right? So the representation matters.
How do you see and feel the representation is here in Middle Tennessee? Now, city council and metro, or judges. And we're in a political race. There are many candidates, many African American candidates. There are many fine African American judges in criminal court and otherwise that we've done gavel to gavel on. How do you feel the representation is there right now? And let's take it all the way to the police department.
Well, I think that
black police chief.
Yeah, the representation for Nashville and Davidson County, Middle Tennessee, has to look like the community that it serves, right? And it does not. And so we got some work to do.
Okay, talk about where. When you say it does not, give me some examples.
Well, I mean, for instance, I think it's no secret, even in our police department, our police department needs to have the representation that looks like the community that it serves. Our fire department, our city council, as an example, in our offices, so yeah, they're at our legislation, state legislators, our representatives, that we send to Congress, we need to have representation that look like the people that the community makes up.
Do you believe, there are enough, part of the issue is getting the good candidates to run, and whether they're willing or want to. Is that part of the issue here, or do you think there's any issues getting what you think are qualified applicants that are willing to run?
I think we have qualified applicants.
That are willing to run?
I don't think that are willing to run. I don't think that's the issue.
Okay.
I think the issue gets down to the vote. You gotta turn out the vote to be able to get people to vote for you. and you got to be able to talk about the issues.
Well, and it gets down to also getting out the vote is what it costs.
That's what
and
it
the money,
costs.
and we've talked about the disparity in money and such, and so many people sometimes finance their own campaigns.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, you talk about an election that's going to cost $3 million.
Right.
Who has $3 million to run for an office that's only going to pay you $100,000 a year? I mean,
Getting back to the police department, then the diversity in there. We do have an African American police chief, but there have been some pretty high-profile cases here where there have been officer-involved shootings. As a result, there is one officer serving time right now, for a shooting. Do you get the sense that when it comes to law enforcement in the metro area, if an African American is pulled over, do they view them as, is this adversarial, is it scary? Or is this something that okay, they'll be treated like anyone else? How do you think that feels here?
Well, I think, if you're a black American, especially, I'll speak from my perspective as a black male.
Sure.
If I get pulled over I have a lot of thoughts running through my head.
Okay.
Right? And so I have been taught what to do and what to say. And my objective at that moment is to make sure that I get home. Right? So, now, that's not always the case, right? We have great police officers. I think we have more good police officers than we do bad police officers.
Oh, sure.
But there are occasions, where you have bad police officers that do bad things, and as a result, people get hurt behind it. And so we have to be mindful and all of that. And I think Chief Drake is doing a great job of making sure that he's putting individuals, men and women, out on the street that is truly willing to be guardians that will serve and protect the population.
Yeah. I mean, it's just interesting as you describe how you handle it if you get pulled over.
Yeah.
Your mindset, because of where you come from and your background, is different than what I will think if I'm pulled over.
Absolutely.
It is different, and that's not right.
Yeah,
it's not right. But
it's not right, but it's reality.
But I understand it, and time and again on this program, people are like, "Well, just cooperate with law enforcement." Well, you're more likely to cooperate if you're not fearing someone. Sometimes. I guess my point is too, as we move forward with all of this. We want African Americans obviously to understand, be involved and vote, but you hope, is there an understanding there among the white population? Do you think we get these reports out? In general, does the whole population understand, and maybe sometimes it'd be nice to see more empathy?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the job of the Urban League of Middle Tennessee, to be able to speak to these issues and get this information out in the hands of the community, and hold forums, where people can discuss, real issues that matter, issues, that not. This is not anecdotal information. This is information that has been tracked for a number of years.
Let's take a call from Thomas. Thomas, good morning. Hi, Tom.
Hey, good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm a 75-year-old native Nashvilleian. Now, it just blows my mind that people don't know that Tennessee succeeded from the Union during the Civil War and fought to preserve slavery. Another thing, the Tennessean newspaper around 1978, I wish somebody would find this photo, has a picture of Nathan Bedford Forrest and the Ku Klux Klan in their full regalia. It's on you can find it on the Tennessean newspaper around 1978. Thank you very much.
You just made a couple. I don't know if you want to comment. With regard to Nathan Bedford Forrest and attention to things that maybe are found offensive by members of the black community. I mean, we know that statue of Nathan Bedford Forrest on I-65 finally came down.
Finally came down.
We know the story.
I drove by it every day for a number of years.
Right, and the flags I think are still up, the Confederate flags, but the statue's down. We know that the bust of Nathan Bedford Forrest and all the controversy over that in the state capitol. Just your thoughts on that, the fact that brought attention, and it was controversial, and there were those who didn't want that removed, and people, saying, look, it's not a racist thing, it's history thing, and not wanting it down, but it came down. What do you think of that?
Well, I was glad to see it come down, and I think it was time for it to come down. It is a symbol I guess, heritage for some people, but it is a symbol for hate, for other people.
What did you think when you drove by it every day?
That it needed to come down,
But I mean, it's hurtful to you to see that.
Nathan Bedford Forrest did not represent me. So, and knowing the history of how people were enslaved and how people were taken advantage of, and the atrocities that were done to people, it was time for it to come down. That is not who Tennessee is.
Take a break on that note, and for those who aren't familiar, that statue was on private property, but when the owner, Bill Doris, passed away, he willed some of it to various organizations, and that's where, through the process of divvying up his possessions, it did ultimately come down. So, yeah, I think a lot of people are glad to see it come down. Some not so much, but it's gone, and I don't think it's coming back.
I don't think it's coming back.
We'll take a break. When we come back, we can take more phone calls. Cindy and others stay there. As I said, we're talking this morning with Clifton Harris. He's the CEO of the Urban League of Middle Tennessee. But in regards to just out the National Urban League's national report on Black America, we'll be back with more right after this.